Marcus Sterling stood at the viewport of New Singapore Station, watching the gleaming ships dock and depart against the backdrop of endless stars. His reflection showed a man in his mid-30s, weathered but fit, with dark hair graying slightly at the temples. The prestigious Galactic Security Guild badge on his jacket caught the light, marking him as one of the elite few trusted with the most sensitive protection contracts in known space. His comm unit chimed with an incoming message. The contract details scrolled across his retinal display: escort mission, highest security clearance, maximum discretion required. The payment made him raise an eyebrow, enough credits to buy a small fleet of ships. Interesting timing, he murmured, thinking of his recent consideration of retirement. One last job couldn't hurt. The meeting location was the Celestial Spire, the most exclusive hotel on the station. Marcus made his way through the pristine corridors, his enhanced vision scanning for potential threats out of habit. The hotel's security system recognized his credentials, allowing him smooth passage to the penthouse level. The doors opened to reveal an opulent suite decorated in shades of silver and blue. Standing by a crystalline table was a tall, elegant figure, Ambassador Theron of the Astari Dominion. His iridescent skin shifted colors subtly in the light, a trademark of his species. "Mr. Sterling," Theron greeted him with a slight bow. "Your reputation precedes you." "Ambassador," Marcus nodded respectfully. "I understand you have a sensitive assignment." "Indeed." Theron gestured to a holoscreen showing the image of a striking young woman with silvery skin and eyes like distant galaxies. "This is Princess Vina of the Royal House of Astari. She requires secure transport to the Centauri system for a diplomatic arrangement." Marcus noted the ambassador's careful choice of words. "Diplomatic arrangement? A union that will strengthen ties between our peoples," Theron replied smoothly. "The princess must reach her destination within 7 standard days. There are elements that might wish to prevent this union." The doors whispered open again, and Marcus turned to see the subject of their discussion enter the room. Princess Vina moved with ethereal grace, her traditional robes flowing like stardust. But Marcus caught something in her eyes, a flash of something that didn't match her serene expression. "Mr. Sterling will be ensuring your safe passage, Your Highness," Theron announced. Vina inclined her head slightly. "I trust the guild's choice." Her voice was melodious but carefully controlled. As Marcus reviewed the security protocols with Theron, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The princess's responses were too perfect, too rehearsed. He'd spent enough time in the security business to recognize when someone was under duress. The transport arrangements were elaborate, a luxury cruise liner called the Stellar Dream, with a private deck reserved for their use. The manifest listed the princess as a wealthy merchant's daughter on vacation, with Marcus as her personal security. As they prepared to depart the suite, Vina passed close to Marcus. In that brief moment, she pressed something into his hand, a small data crystal. Her eyes met his for just a second, but the message was clear: "Help me." Marcus maintained his professional demeanor as they made their way to the docking bay, but his mind was racing. The crystal burned in his pocket like a live coal. He'd been in enough complicated situations to know that this job was about to become far more than a simple escort mission. The Stellar Dream awaited them, its sleek hull gleaming under the station's lights. As they boarded, Marcus caught sight of several other passengers who didn't quite fit the luxury cruise profile, their movements too practiced, their attention too focused. Either additional security or potential threats, he couldn't be sure yet. In their private suite, Marcus finally had a moment to scan the data crystal, using his own secured systems rather than the ship's network. What he found made his blood run cold. This was no diplomatic union, it was a sale. The princess was being sold to the notorious Centauri Syndicate, known for trafficking in exotic commodities. The contract sum made sense now. This wasn't payment for protection, it was hush money. Marcus looked out at the stars as the ship prepared for departure. His retirement plans would have to wait. He had a choice to make: fulfill the contract and walk away rich, or risk everything to help someone in need. The soldier in him, the one who'd joined the security guild to protect people, already knew the answer. The ship's engines hummed to life, beginning their journey into the depths of space. Whatever came next, Marcus Sterling's last job was going to be anything but routine. The Stellar Dreams artificial night cycle cast soft shadows across the private suite as Marcus reviewed the security feeds. 3 days into their journey, he'd identified at least 6 undercover operatives among the passengers, a mix of Astari agents and what he suspected were syndicate observers. They were being watched from all sides. Princess Vina sat in the suite's lounge area, her fingers tracing patterns on a datapad as she pretended to read. She'd maintained her regal composure in public, but in private, Marcus had begun to see cracks in the facade. "They'll be expecting a status update soon," Marcus said, keeping his voice low despite the suite's privacy shields. "Your father's representatives are very thorough." Vina's hand stilled on the datapad. "He's not my father." Her voice carried an edge he hadn't heard before. "The royal house acquired me from a lesser noble family when their own daughter proved unsuitable for their purposes." Marcus turned from the security feeds. "Unsuitable?" "She had too many opinions," Vina said with a bitter smile. "Too much fire. They needed someone more pliable." She set the datapad aside. "Do you know what it's like, Mr. Sterling, to be raised solely as an asset? To be molded and shaped until there's nothing left of who you might have been?" The rawness in her voice struck something in Marcus. He thought of his own past, of the military that had turned him into a weapon before he'd found his own path. "I might have some idea." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the carefully maintained distance between them wavered. Vina rose and moved to the viewport, her silver skin reflecting the starlight. "The syndicate doesn't want me for my diplomatic skills. They want my biological data, the genetic modifications the royal house made to create their perfect princess. Do you know what they could do with that information? Create more people like you," Marcus said quietly. "To sell to the highest bidders." "Exactly." She turned to face him. "I've spent my life being property. I won't let them use me to enslave others." Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice further. "The ship's making a maintenance stop at Helios Station tomorrow. It would be the perfect opportunity to—" A soft chime interrupted him. The suite's communication panel lit up with an incoming transmission from the royal house. Vina's face immediately smoothed into its practiced serenity as she accepted the call. The holographic image of Ambassador Theron materialized. "Your Highness. I trust your journey proceeds smoothly." "Everything is perfect, Ambassador," Vina replied, her voice once again the melodious tones of a proper princess. "Excellent. And Mr. Sterling?" Theron's eyes shifted to Marcus. "No concerns to report?" "None, Ambassador. The princess's safety is assured." The ambassador's skin rippled with colors that Marcus had learned to recognize as satisfaction. "Very good. We've received word that your destination party is quite eager to complete the transaction. They've arranged a welcoming ceremony that will be most memorable." Marcus caught the slight tremor in Vina's hands, though her face remained perfectly composed. The threat in Theron's words was clear: everything was arranged, and deviation would not be tolerated. After the transmission ended, Vina remained still for a long moment. Then, with deliberate care, she removed the ornate pins from her hair, letting it fall in waves of starlit silver. "They'll be watching the maintenance stop," she said quietly. "Yes," Marcus agreed, already formulating plans. "But they'll be watching for an escape attempt. Not a catastrophic security system failure that forces an emergency evacuation of the entire deck." Vina turned to him, hope warring with fear in her eyes. "You'd risk everything?" Your reputation, your guild membership, your life. Marcus thought of all the times he'd followed orders without question, of the lines he'd crossed in the name of duty. Maybe this was his chance to balance those scales. Some things are worth the risk. The next 12 hours were a careful dance of preparation disguised as routine. Marcus ran standard security checks that just happened to give him access to critical systems. Vina packed a small bag of necessities while appearing to select outfits for upcoming social events. As the Stellar Dream approached Helio Station, Marcus couldn't help but appreciate the irony. He'd built his reputation on being the most reliable security specialist in the guild. Now he was about to throw it all away to break every protocol in the book. But watching Vina quietly prepare for their escape, seeing the strength beneath her carefully constructed mask, he knew he'd made the right choice. Sometimes protection meant more than following a contract. Sometimes it meant helping someone break free. Helio Station hung in space like a massive silver spider web, its spinning rings catching the light of the nearby sun. The Stellar Dream's docking procedure had gone smoothly, too smoothly, Marcus thought. He could feel the tension building like a storm about to break. In their suite, Marcus made final checks on his modified security protocols while Vina changed into the practical clothing they'd acquired through the ship's automated shopping system. Gone were the flowing robes of an Astari princess, replaced by a dark jumper that wouldn't draw attention. 3 minutes until system initialization, Marcus said, checking his neural display. Once it starts, we'll have exactly 8 minutes before they can override it. Vina nodded, securing her silver hair under a cap. The evacuation protocols will trigger emergency pods to launch automatically, correct? Yes, but they'll be watching those. We're taking a different route. Marcus pressed his hand against a seemingly ordinary section of wall, revealing a hidden maintenance access. Maintenance crews use these tunnels to access the ship's core systems. They lead to the engineering deck's emergency shuttles. A sudden alert flashed across his neural display. They're moving early. 3 syndicate operatives just entered this deck. How? Vina started. Someone talked. Doesn't matter who. Marcus drew his pulse pistol, setting it to stun. New plan. We move now. They slipped into the maintenance tunnel just as the suite's door chimed with an override command. Marcus sealed the access panel behind them, but he knew it wouldn't hold for long. The tunnel was narrow, lit only by emergency strips along the floor. Stay close, he whispered. 2 levels down to engineering. They moved as quickly as they dared through the maze of service passages. Marcus's enhanced vision helped them navigate, but the real challenge would come when they reached engineering. The syndicate would have that covered too. A distant clang echoed through the tunnels. Someone else had found an access point. Marcus checked his neural display again and swore quietly. They've locked down all emergency shuttles. Then we've failed, Vina breathed, her voice tight with fear. No. Marcus pulled up the ship's schematics in his display. We're not going for a shuttle anymore. We're going for them. What? The Syndicate's own ship. It's docked in Bay 7, minimal security because they're so focused on watching the escape routes. He gave her a grim smile. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. They changed direction, heading for the cargo decks. The maintenance tunnels were less frequently used here, thick with dust that could betray their passage. Marcus used his suit's systems to create a small electromagnetic field that attracted the dust particles around them. They were nearly to their exit point when Marcus's neural implant picked up encrypted communications. Multiple teams converging. They've figured out we're in the tunnels. Vina touched his arm. I hear something above us. Marcus listened, footsteps on the deck plating overhead. They were running out of options. Do you trust me? He asked suddenly. Yes. Her answer came without hesitation. Marcus pulled a small device from his gear. Then hold on to me. Tight. When Vina wrapped her arms around his neck, he activated the device. The deck plating beneath them glowed briefly, then disintegrated in a controlled molecular breakdown. They dropped into the cargo bay below, Marcus's enhanced reflexes allowing him to land smoothly despite carrying Vina. Alarms blared throughout the ship now. Through the cargo bay's massive windows, they could see Heliostation security ships beginning to move. Their window of opportunity was closing fast. There. Vina pointed to a sleek black ship with subtle red markings, definitely Syndicate design. They sprinted for it, Marcus's neural systems already working to hack its security. A plasma bolt sizzled past them, scorching the deck plating. Marcus spun, returning fire with his pulse pistol while keeping Vina behind him. Inside, he shouted as the ship's hatch opened. Secondary control panel, right side. Enter these numbers exactly, 7-9-4-3 Alpha, 0. Vina darted aboard while Marcus provided covering fire. The Syndicate operatives were good, but they weren't expecting their target to shoot back with military precision. 2 went down, then 3. Marcus backed into the ship, sealing the hatch. In the cockpit, Vina had already entered the override code. What now? Now, Marcus said, sliding into the pilot's seat, we show them why humans have a reputation for crazy tactics. He fired up the engines, bypassing standard launch protocols. The cargo bay's magnetic locks tried to hold them, but Marcus had already compromised those systems during their escape preparation. They're sealing the bay doors, Vina reported, watching the massive barriers begin to close. Marcus's hands flew over the controls. They're not closing fast enough. The ship rocketed forward, threading the narrowing gap with barely meters to spare. Behind them, Heliostation erupted into chaos as security forces scrambled to respond to the theft of a Syndicate vessel. Multiple pursuit ships launching, Vina said, learning quickly to read the tactical displays. And, something bigger. A Royal House cruiser just dropped out of hyperspace. Marcus programmed a series of rapid course changes while charging the jump drive. They're not going to risk shooting at us. Not while you're aboard. The Syndicate might. True. Marcus flashed her a quick grin. So let's not give them the chance. The stolen ship dove into the debris field that surrounded Heliostation's outer rings. Marcus piloted on pure instinct, using the asteroid fragments and abandoned equipment as cover while the jump drive spooled up. 10 seconds to jump capability, Vina reported. The ship shuddered as a glancing hit from a pursuit vessel clipped their shields. Marcus executed a tight spiral around a derelict mining platform, using it to block their pursuers' line of sight. Jump ready. Marcus punched in the coordinates he'd prepared, a seemingly random point in deep space. Hold on. The stars stretched into lines of light, and their pursuers vanished as they made the jump to hyperspace. Only then did Marcus allow himself to breathe normally again. That, Vina said shakily, was either brilliant or insane. With humans, it's usually both. Marcus checked their course. We're not safe yet. This is just the beginning of their pursuit. But at least now we have a fighting chance. Vina reached over and squeezed his hand. Thank you. For choosing to help me. Marcus squeezed back. Some choices make themselves. As their stolen ship hurtled through hyperspace, they both knew the real challenges still lay ahead. The Syndicate and the Royal House would not give up easily. But for now, they had won their first victory, freedom. 3 hyperspace jumps later, their stolen ship dropped into real space near the edge of the Perseus arm. The distant stars offered little comfort, every system was a potential trap, every port a possible ambush point. Marcus studied the ship's long-range scanners while Vina slept in the co-pilot's seat. The past 48 hours had taken their toll on both of them. He'd noticed how her silvery skin had begun to dim slightly, a sign of stress in her species. His neural implant finished decrypting the ship's secure files, revealing a treasure trove of syndicate data. The organization's reach was even greater than he'd suspected, with agents embedded in nearly every major spaceport in known space. A soft alert from his implant warned him of Vina's changing vital signs moments before she stirred. "Any pursuit?" she asked, immediately alert. "Nothing direct," Marcus replied. "But I found something interesting in the ship's files. The Syndicate has a lot of enemies, including a group of former Guild operatives who went rogue after discovering what the organization was really doing." Vina straightened in her seat. "You think they might help us?" "Worth a try." Their last known location was a mining colony called Haven's Edge. It's technically under human jurisdiction, but far enough from central authority that the local governor operates pretty independently. "The Syndicate won't expect us to be so bold as to seek shelter in human space," Vina observed. "They'll assume we'll try to disappear into the neutral zones." Marcus nodded. "Exactly. Plus, Haven's Edge has something else going for it, the strongest electromagnetic interference field in the sector. Makes long-range scanning nearly impossible." They set course for Haven's Edge, using the stolen ship's syndicate codes to bypass automated checkpoints. As they approached the colony, Marcus couldn't help but be impressed by the sight. Massive mining platforms extended from an asteroid base, their extraction beams cutting through space like silver threads. "Incoming transmission," Vina reported, her fingers dancing over the comm panel. "They're requesting identification." Marcus activated the ship's secure channel. "Haven's Edge Control, this is Shadow Runner requesting emergency docking under Protocol 7 Echo 9. There was a long pause. When the response came, it was on a different frequency. "Shadow Runner, transmit authentication key." Marcus sent the series of codes he'd memorized years ago, a failsafe for Guild operatives who needed to go dark. Another pause, longer this time. "Proceed to docking bay 13, level red. Welcome to Haven's Edge, old friend." The voice was familiar. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "Looks like at least one person I was hoping to find is still here." They followed the guidance markers to a secluded docking bay deep within the asteroid. As they landed, Marcus noticed the bay's defensive capabilities: automated turrets, shield generators, and what looked like a dedicated power core. Someone was serious about security. The bay's inner door opened to reveal a tall woman with cybernetic augmentations visible along her neck and arms. Despite the years, Marcus recognized her immediately. "Raven," he said as they disembarked. "Still running the galaxy's best hideout?" "Still bringing trouble to my doorstep," she countered, but there was warmth in her smile. Her augmented eyes scanned Vina. "Though this might be a new record, even for you. An Astari Royal and a stolen syndicate ship? The bounty on your heads must be astronomical by now." "We need help," Marcus said simply. Raven's expression turned serious. "Follow me. Quickly. The interference field buys us some privacy, but we shouldn't linger in the open." She led them through a series of maintenance corridors to what appeared to be a converted storage facility. Inside, advanced communication equipment lined the walls, and several people worked at various stations. All of them had the look of former military or security personnel. "Welcome to the Resistance," Raven said, gesturing to the room. "We've been gathering evidence against the Syndicate for years. Their connection to the Astari Royal House's genetic trafficking program is one of our primary targets." Vina stepped forward. "I can help with that. I have direct knowledge of their operations, their facilities, their buyers." "Which makes you incredibly valuable," a new voice interrupted. A man emerged from a side room, his bearing unmistakably military despite his civilian clothes. "And incredibly dangerous to harbor." "Commander Pierce," Marcus acknowledged. "I thought you were dead." That was the idea. Pierce studied them both carefully. The question is, what do we do with you now? The Syndicate and the Royal House will tear apart half the galaxy looking for their missing princess. Then let them, Marcus said firmly. While they're searching, we can use the intel from their own ship and Vina's testimony to expose their entire operation. It won't be that simple, Raven warned. We've tried to expose them before. They have too many powerful people in their pockets. But you've never had someone like me, Vina interjected. Her voice carried the authority of her royal training, but now it was backed by genuine conviction. I know their secrets, their weaknesses, their fears. And I'm willing to risk everything to bring them down. Pierce and Raven exchanged looks. Finally, Pierce nodded. We'll help you. But you should know, once we start this, there's no going back. The Syndicate will send everything they have. They already want us dead, Marcus pointed out. Might as well make it for something worthwhile. A series of alerts suddenly lit up the communication panels. One of the operators called out, multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the interference field. Signatures matched Syndicate assault vessels. They found us faster than expected, Raven muttered. How? The ship, Marcus realized. They must have had a backup tracker we missed, something that could penetrate the interference. Pierce was already moving. Battle stations. Initiate defense protocols Delta through Kappa. Raven, get our guests to the secure level. But Marcus had a different idea. No. We're done running. He turned to Vina. You said you wanted to bring them down. Want to start now? A slow smile spread across her face, not the practiced smile of a princess, but something fiercer. What did you have in mind? They're not just coming to kill us, Marcus explained, his tactical mind racing. They're coming to silence us, to prevent us from revealing what we know. So let's use that against them. He turned to Pierce. Does Haven's Edge still have its emergency broadcast array? The one that can reach every settlement in the sector simultaneously? Understanding dawned in the commander's eyes. You want to put her on every screen in the Perseus arm. While they're assaulting the base, Marcus nodded. They'll be so focused on trying to stop the broadcast, they won't realize until too late that it's exactly what we want them to do. The violence of their attack will only prove everything I say, Vina added, catching on to the plan. Raven grinned. Using their own aggression to trap them. Now that's the kind of crazy thinking I've missed about working with humans. As the base's defense systems powered up and crews rushed to battle stations, Marcus caught Vina's hand. Ready to help me set another trap? She squeezed his hand. With you? Always. Haven's Edge shuddered under the first wave of Syndicate attacks. Defensive shields flared brilliant blue against the darkness of space as enemy ships pressed their assault. Inside the command center, Marcus watched the tactical displays while Raven's crews coordinated their defense. Broadcast array is ready, Pierce announced. But we'll only get one shot at this. Once we start transmitting, they'll throw everything they have at us. Vina stood before the recording array, her silver skin luminescent under the harsh lights. She'd changed back into her royal garments, not for vanity, but for impact. When she spoke out against her oppressors, she would do so as one of them. Shield stability at 80%, Raven reported. We've got multiple boarding attempts at the outer rings. Marcus checked his weapons. Our defense teams? Holding, for now. But they're using neural scramblers. Our people can't stay in direct combat for long. A massive impact rocked the station. Through the reinforced viewport, Marcus saw a Syndicate heavy cruiser emerging from the interference field, its weapon systems fully charged. That's their command ship, he said, recognizing the configuration. Ambassador Theron's on board. He wouldn't trust anyone else to handle this personally. Good, Vina said firmly. I want him to witness this. She turned to Pierce. I'm ready. Pierce nodded to his communications officer. Initiating broadcast. Station-wide defense protocols at maximum. Veena took a deep breath as the recording light activated. When she spoke, her voice carried all the authority of her royal training, but now it served truth instead of deception. I am Princess Veena of the Royal House of Astari, and this is my testimony. For generations, my people's ruling class has committed atrocities in the name of genetic perfection. I am not their daughter, I am their creation, designed to be sold to the highest bidder. But I am not alone. As she spoke, laying bare the dark secrets of both the royal house and the syndicate, Marcus coordinated with Raven's security teams. The syndicate forces had breached the outer defenses and were pushing inward, using advanced weaponry that tested even Haven's Edge's formidable defenses. They're targeting the broadcast array, Raven warned. Multiple strike teams converging on our position. Marcus checked the tactical display. They're being too aggressive. Look at their formation, they're leaving their flanks exposed. Pierce saw it too. Because they think we're trapped. They don't realize that we wanted them to commit fully to the attack, Marcus finished. He opened a secure channel to their hidden assets. All teams, execute Protocol Omega. Now. Across Haven's Edge, concealed defense turrets emerged from their hidden positions. But more importantly, dozens of ships suddenly powered up, vessels that had been laying dormant in the debris field around the station, crewed by former guild operatives who'd answered Raven's call for aid. The syndicate forces found themselves caught in a crossfire. Their aggressive push toward the broadcast center had left them vulnerable to attack from multiple directions. But victory wouldn't come easily. The enemy ships regrouped quickly, and soon the space around Haven's Edge became a chaos of weapon fire and tactical maneuvers. Inside the station, Marcus and Raven's teams engaged in close-quarters combat with syndicate boarding parties. Through it all, Veena continued her broadcast, her voice steady as she revealed decades of corruption and cruelty. The evidence from the stolen syndicate ship played alongside her testimony: financial records, genetic research data, proof of illegal experiments and trafficking. Multiple impacts on levels 3 through 7, Raven reported. They're getting desperate. A new alert flashed on the tactical display. The syndicate command ship was powering up its main weapon array, a blast that could potentially crack Haven's Edge in half. They'll destroy the entire station just to silence her, Pierce realized. No, Marcus said firmly. They won't. He turned to Veena. Keep broadcasting. No matter what happens, don't stop. He sprinted from the command center, his neural implants linking him to the station's systems. The syndicate forces had indeed left themselves vulnerable in their desperate attack. Now it was time to make them pay for that mistake. Marcus fought his way to the primary defense control room, encountering heavy resistance. His combat training and enhanced reflexes kept him alive as he engaged multiple attackers in close combat. Each confrontation was brief and decisive, he couldn't afford to be slowed down. Finally reaching his destination, Marcus interfaced directly with Haven's Edge's defense grid. The station's powerful electromagnetic interference field could be modified, turned from a passive defense into something far more dangerous. Raven, he called over the secure channel. Get our ships to pull back. All of them. What are you? She paused, understanding dawning. The interference field. You're going to overload it. Tell Veena, tell her I'm sorry. I'll miss the end of her speech. Marcus initiated the overload sequence just as the command ship's weapons reached full power. The interference field collapsed inward, then exploded outward in a wave of electromagnetic energy. The pulse would fry every ship's systems within range, including the station's own defenses. In the command center, Veena watched through the viewport as the syndicate fleet went dark, their ships drifting powerless in space. The command ship's weapon discharge died before it could fire. Marcus, she called over the comm, "Marcus, respond." Static was her only answer. The defense control room had been at the epicenter of the pulse. For several tense minutes, Haven's Edge hung in space, emergency power keeping basic life support online. Then, one by one, systems began to restart. The backup generators kicked in, and with them, the communication grid. "This is Defense Control," a familiar voice crackled over the comm, "Sorry about the light show. My neural shields took a beating, but they held." Vina closed her eyes in relief, then opened them with renewed determination. She faced the still broadcasting array. "You have seen the truth," she declared. "Not just of their crimes, but of their weakness. They thought they could silence us with force, but they failed. The Royal House and the Syndicate are finished. Their own actions here today have proven every word I've spoken." Within hours, response ships began arriving from multiple systems. The broadcast had reached even further than they'd hoped, and the evidence was undeniable. Among the first to respond were ships bearing the insignia of the Human Defense Fleet. Humanity's official military force had witnessed the entire battle. In the aftermath, as Alliance peacekeepers took custody of the Syndicate forces and emergency crews worked to restore Haven's Edge to full power, Marcus found Vina in the observation dome. She stood watching the stars, her royal garments now showing signs of the battle they'd endured. "The Human Defense Fleet is offering asylum," he said softly. "Full protection while you testify before the Galactic Council." "And after?" she asked, not turning around. "After, you're free. Completely free, for the first time in your life." He moved to stand beside her. "Any ideas what you'll do with that freedom?" Now she did turn, and the smile she gave him was radiant. "I have a few thoughts. Most of them involve a certain ex-security specialist who taught me that some things are worth fighting for." Marcus smiled back. "Funny coincidence. I hear he's looking for a new job. His last contract ended rather dramatically." "Did it?" Vina stepped closer. "Or did it end exactly as it was supposed to?" Their kiss was witnessed only by the stars, stars that now promised not danger and pursuit, but possibility and hope. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from following orders, but from choosing to break them for the right reasons. In the days that followed, the full scope of their victory became clear. The Syndicate's network crumbled as evidence of their crime spread across the galaxy. The Royal House faced internal revolution as their own people turned against their corrupt leadership. And in the end, the story of a princess who chose freedom and a human who chose justice became legend, proof that even in the darkest corners of space, light can prevail if people are brave enough to stand for what's right.